Always a delight to have you join us on the news at 10 on NTA News 24. We are reaching you live from Abuja. I am Vivian Izadifi. Let's now begin with the headlines. President Tinubu arrived Rio de Janeiro, Brazil for 2025 BRICS Summit. Senate holds public hearing as Constitutional Review Committee seeks stakeholders' opinion on proposed amendments. FRSC sentences 4 recalcitrant drivers to community service as Corps Marshal warns traffic violators. And now on the president trip to Brazil, President Bola Tinubu is in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil for the 2025 BRICS Summit. The presidential airplane, which departed St. Lucia earlier, landed at the Rio International Airport at about 8:45 Friday night. The president was received on arrival by the Secretary for Africa and Middle East and Secretary for Innovation and Commerce. In Rio de Janeiro, President Tinubu is one of the 4 African leaders attending the 17th BRICS Summit. Presidential spokesman Bayo Onanuga in a statement says President Tinubu is attending the summit at the invitation of the President Luis Inácio Lula da Silva of Brazil on the strength of Nigeria's status as a partner country. A membership category short of full status, he explained that the partner status is higher than that of a guest country, as has been the case in the past. South Africa, Egypt, and Ethiopia are African members of BRICS. At this year's summit, BRICS leaders from countries identified as the world's fast-growing economies converged on Rio de Janeiro, promising to strengthen trade and technology exchange within the blocs against the background of U.S. President Donald Trump's tariff threat. Meanwhile, President Bola Tinubu has described the critical infrastructure project provided by the FCTA as his administration's way of bridging the gap between promise and performance. The president stated this while inaugurating the newly rehabilitated Aguma Palace Radio Nigeria New Market Road in the Gwagwalada Area Council. Onoze Yakubu reports that the president's message was delivered by the Vice President Kashim Shettima at the event.
Gwagwalada Township roads have been in a deplorable condition for many years. Statistics indicate that for those who live beyond the city center, they have watched development happen from a distance. But history is being rewritten with this infrastructure provision by the present administration. President Bola Tinubu, represented by the Vice President Kashim Shettima, says the administration is not just rehabilitating roads, but building trust, adding that the transformative drive is the product of reform-oriented policies of the present administration.
What makes this moment even more remarkable is that the projects we are engaging were not imposed from above. They were nominated by the people of Gwagwalada themselves, and this is the kind of democracy we believe in. One that listens, one that responds, and one that delivers. Revenue base of the FCT, we are investing in roads, schools, hospitals, and people. The newly rehabilitated Aguma Palace Radio Nigeria New Market Road is a lifeline to the communities it connects.
FCT Minister Nyesom Wike expresses readiness to initiate more projects that have a direct impact on the lives of the people.
Look at how happy the people are. That's to tell you that these roads have affected their life. Each time I come here for inspection, you can see the joy in them. Are you happy? Are you happy? Do you want more things? Do you want more things? We will give you whatever you want.
The commissioning of this road is a demonstration of our dedication to inclusive governance and also infrastructure renewal in our urban and the rural communities.
The 10-kilometer stretch road constructed by an indigenous contractor was delivered in 8 months. Onoze Yakubu, NTA News.
To the National Assembly now, legislative efforts to improve Nigeria's governance structure shifted to geopolitical zones as the Senate sought the opinion of stakeholders on proposed amendments to the Constitution. National Assembly correspondent Lami Ali reports.
The public hearing preparatory to the 6th alteration to the Constitution is being held simultaneously across geopolitical zones with reforms to security and policing, inclusivity, traditional institutions, fiscal environments, judiciary, electoral, as well as agitations for creation of more states and local governments topping the agenda.
Security concerns across the nooks and crannies of the country, so there's clamor for creation of state police in view of the fact that we already have various vigilantes being sponsored by the various state governments.
Devolution of powers. There seems to be a preponderance of opinion that power is so concentrated at the center, and therefore power should be devolved to the state.
In Maiduguri, stakeholders said adding the voice of Nigerians in the exercise would enable realignment and adaptation to changing realities for all-round developments.
There is no gainsaying Nigeria's participation in the process of amending the Constitution will strengthen the validity of the Constitution and create a sense of ownership of the Constitution among the citizens.
The traditional institutions are a bearing commitment towards building a united Nigeria where peace, justice, and equity cannot be ignored.
The adoption of special seat for women in Parliament is not a favor, it is a constitutional and moral imperative that will enrich Nigerian democracy, deepen accountability, and also promote national development.
We have resolved, as people requesting category state, to see it to fruition, or we will die fighting for it, and our people will continue to look for it.
Let me also acknowledge the fraternal request by our brothers and sisters in Wubak Chiefdom of Borno to join us in Amana State.
The public hearing will be concluded Saturday, though that of the Northwest Zone has been postponed to a later date in honor of the late Alhassan Lantata, who died recently. Lami Ali, NTA News.
Meanwhile, the Senate Committee on Constitutional Review, led by the Deputy Senate President and represented by the Senate Leader, Opeyemi Bamidele, has convened a zonal public hearing in Lagos in a historic move to address lingering national concerns and promote inclusive governance. The event, held simultaneously across Nigeria's 6 geopolitical zones, seeks to incorporate the views of diverse stakeholders on 14 critical areas of reform to further amend the 1999 Constitution. Josuto Moses reports.
At the Lagos Center, representatives from traditional institutions, civil society organizations, and political leaders gathered to lend their voices. The Lagos State Governor, represented by the Deputy Obafemi Hamzat, emphasized the need for constitutional recognition of the state's 37 local council development areas as substantive local governments, bringing the total to 57. Some of the issues of concern in the region are boundary adjustment between Lagos and Ogun states, creation of 5 new states in the southwest, Ijebu, Coastal, Igbomina, Ibadan, and New Oyo.
For us in Lagos State, it must be stated that we are requesting unequivocally the listing of our 37 local development areas. These are children that have been given birth to. They've been nurtured and they have grown. It will be unfair for the nation to not give them a birth certificate.
You will agree with me that the old Ijebu province remains the only province without a standalone state.
Highlighting the importance of traditional institutions in the national development, the Ooni of Ife, alongside other royal fathers from the 6 southwest states, commended the National Assembly for formally involving traditional rulers in the review process.
We can assure you that we will continue to do our best in terms of our contribution towards a better Nigeria.
This zonal hearing, the fifth round of constitutional alterations since 1999, the Senate leader, Okpeyemi Bamidele, noted, reflects the National Assembly's renewed commitment to strengthening Nigeria's democracy through participatory reforms.
Several fundamental issues of national importance remain unresolved, requiring more than just routine lawmaking by the National Assembly and state houses of assembly. These issues continue to dominate public discourse, with many Nigerians advocating for legislative action to address them.
The committee has received hundreds of memoranda from Nigerians and assured that all inputs will be thoroughly considered. In Lagos, Jesuto Moses, NTA News.
And to the stable of justice, the Federal High Court sitting in Abuja has ordered the Nigerian Senate to recall the lawmaker representing Kogi Central Senatorial District, Senator Natasha Akpoti-Uduaghan, who was suspended for 6 months. The trial judge, Justice Binta Nyako, gave the order in a verdict in a suit filed by Senator Natasha Akpoti-Uduaghan against the Senate and its leadership. Dela Tumbi of our Judiciary Desk reports.
The parties in this matter are Senator Natasha Akpoti-Uduaghan as plaintiff, the Senate, Clerk of the National Assembly, President of the Senate, and Chairman Senate Committee on Ethics, Privileges, and Public Petitions are respondents. Senator Natasha Akpoti-Uduaghan challenged a suspension by the Senate for 6 months, which was done on March 6, 2025. Ruling on the preliminary issues raised by both parties, Justice Binta Nyako found Senator Natasha culpable of contempt of court following a satirical apology she posted on her Facebook page. The court fined the lawmaker 5 million naira for contempt, which is to be paid into the treasury of the court. Additionally, she is ordered to publish a formal apology on her Facebook page and in 2 national dailies, all within 7 days of this ruling. On the substantive matter, which is the suspension of Senator Natasha by the Senate, Justice Binta Nyako described the suspension as excessive. The court maintained that the punishment meted out by the Senate was unjustifiable and disproportionate. The court faulted Section 8 of the Senate Standing Rules and Section 14 of the Legislative House's Powers and Privileges Act, declaring both provisions as overreaching. The court held that while the Senate reserves the right to discipline its members, any sanction must be proportionate and must not infringe upon the constitutional rights of the lawmakers' constituents to be represented. The court ruled that the Senate President Godswill Akpabio was not at fault for refusing to allow Senator Natasha to speak during plenary, given that she was not seated at her officially designated seat. Justice Nyako also dismissed the argument by the respondents that the court lacked jurisdiction to hear the matter on the grounds that it concerned an internal affairs of the Senate.
That the Senate should consider recalling her back, although the reliefs are not stated. There's no question asking for suspension to be lifted because it occurred prior to the suspension. So it was more or less an obiter.
With this verdict, the trial court has now become functions officials. In Abuja, Dele Atumbi, NTA News.
While to party matters now, following the suspension of the national chairman of the Social Democratic Party, SDP, Shehu Gabam, and 2 other officials, the National Working Committee of the party has inaugurated a 5-man committee to investigate allegations of financial misappropriation and submission of fraudulent reports on the audits of the party to INEC leveled against them. Kenneth Nanim reports that the acting national chairman of SDP, Sadiq Umar Abubakar Gombe, urged them to be fair to all parties involved.
Of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, Social Democratic
The 5-man committee is headed by Abubakar Sadiq Liman with Adelewa Williams as secretary. The committee has 14 days to conclude investigations and submit report.
In discharging your duties, we implore you to be just and impartial. Let your findings speak for themselves. It's not meant to witch hunt anybody, but to cleanse and reposition our party for the immense role it is destined to play in the near future. May your work lay the foundation for the restoration and transformation of our great party, the Social Democratic Party, SDP.
The terms of reference were clearly defined, and the necessary documents that will aid the investigation were also handed to the committee.
Finding the truth regarding the allegations of breaches of the SDP Constitution. Determine the circumstances surrounding the production and submission of audit accounts submitted to INEC in the name of SDP.
The National Working Committee of the party says it relied on the provisions of Article 19 and its subsections to suspend the National Chairman, Shehu Gabam, National Auditor, Nandi Klasin, and the National Youth Leader, Uchechukwu Chukuma. The suspension, it says, will also guarantee a thorough investigation that will not be influenced, and we are unanimous that the investigation has become necessary to sustain the party's integrity before the Nigerian people ahead of the 2027 general elections. Kenneth Nanim, NTA News.
You are still watching the news at 10 on NTA News 24. More reports shortly. Stay with us.
The Baffy Furniture Shopping Festival is here. From June 15th to August 15th, enjoy 20%, 30%, up to 50% off on most products. Explore 2025 exclusive collections at discounted prices, plus wedding packages with a free TV stand gift. Plus, free delivery and installation in Abuja, Lagos, Kano, and Enugu. Customize your favorite sets in your preferred color and fabric, from kid-friendly options to our luxurious smart beds. Don't miss out. Shop now at Baffy Furniture.
Welcome back. The Asset Management Corporation of Nigeria has confirmed the sale of the Ibadan Electricity Distribution Company. This follows months of speculation over its status. Thomas Obiteri reports.
The sale of the Ibadan Electricity Distribution Company was announced by the Managing Director and Chief Executive Officer of AMCON, Benga Alade, during a press briefing. Alade disclosed that the transaction, valued at 100 billion naira, was nearly double the initial offer, following renegotiations to secure better terms.
Since this new management in AMCON resumed, we have not sold any asset until 2 weeks ago when the board met and they removed the hold on asset sale. Now that it has been removed, I think we've sold about 2 or 3 properties, high-value properties.
The AMCON MD reiterated the corporation's commitment to recovering all outstanding debts and assets both within and outside Nigeria. He praised the support of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu and other key institutions in driving the corporation's recovery mandates.
Some of these debtors don't keep their assets here in Nigeria. They took most of the proceeds and took it abroad to buy houses abroad and all that. So we are intensifying our asset training, our asset tracing beyond the shores of Nigeria internationally. We have actually hired some international asset tracing, and they are working.
Alade disclosed that as reforms continue across Nigeria's electricity sector, AMCON remains committed to upholding transparency and accountability at all levels. In Abuja, Thomas Ogbetere, NTA News.
Still on power, Nigeria has continued to witness increased investment in renewable energy, but there are concerns over influx of substandard solar panels and batteries. The Rural Electrification Agency is addressing this with the establishment of mini-grid standardization and simulation center for testing of all renewable energy equipment. Joshua Ojito has more on that.
The country is experiencing an influx of substandard or used equipment, and we need to get rid of that for us to catalyze investment into the country.
Nigeria identified the challenge likely to erode the gains being witnessed in the renewable energy subsector, and the Chinese government steps in. 18 equipment worth $150,000 donated to Rural Electrification Agency by the Chinese government to set up a world-class mini-grid testing center to ensure all imported and locally manufactured solar panels, batteries and inverters are certified before installation.
We're also going to use this to ensure the sustainability of our mini-grid infrastructure across the country. We're going to use this for research and development and training of our new intake, and making sure that we use this also to continue to develop the technical skill of the ecosystem.
We will arrange some of the engineer to be here to teach how to use these tools for the IEA.
The whole point of the testing center is we don't need to go to these exact environments, but we can stimulate the conditions you have in those environments. Then we can see the output of these devices under those conditions.
It is one of the gains of President Bola Tinubu's visit to China in 2024, where a memorandum of understanding was signed between the two countries. Joshua Ojito, NTA News.
The Corps Marshal Federal Road Safety Corps FRSC Shehu Mohammed has warned errant drivers against violating established traffic regulations, assuring the motoring public that there will be no more hiding place for traffic violators. This comes after a landmark judgment delivered during a mobile court sitting in Nyanya within the Federal Capital Territory, Abuja, where a recalcitrant traffic offenders were convicted and sentenced to varying days of community service each for blatant violations of road traffic regulations as stipulated under Section 460 subsection 2 of the Administration of Criminal Justice Act 2015 and the provisions of the FRSC Establishment Act 2007. While reacting to the sentence, the Corps Marshal described the decisive judgment as a strong deterrent to all motorists who persist in flouting traffic rules. He also said that it underscores existing collaboration between the Corps and the judiciary in ensuring that offenders are not only apprehended but also made to face the full weight of the law. As diplomacy increasingly intertwines with media influence, Nigeria and other African journalists under the CIPCC program engaged Chinese officials in high-level talks on the future of African-China cooperation. Patricia Isameluba reports that Nigeria, through this rare convergence, reaffirmed its drive to lead in shaping a more strategic and equitable partnership with China.
In a diplomatic exchange that brings media and policy closer than ever, Nigeria is again raising its voice, calling for balanced narratives and shared responsibility in the evolving China-Africa relationship. This rare and high-level engagement brought together African foreign journalists currently in China, and they met with the Director General of the Department of African Affairs, Xiao Huidu, who provided insight into China's policy directions, development diplomacy, and the expectations ahead of the upcoming FOCAC Summit in 2026.
出现了债务问题，办法也只有一个，通过发展的方法 来解决债务问题。现在的非洲债务问题，或者是融资难、融资贵的问题，实际上是因为某个大国自私自利的货币政策。
Nigeria, as often seen as a bellwether for continental leadership, brought a strong message to the table. Africa's role must be elevated from beneficiary to co-architect in shaping future policy directions, which was the stance of the Nigerian Minister of Foreign Affairs, Yusuf Tuga, at the concluded 2025 FOCAC in Chansa, Hunan Province.
It's not just about reporting from the sidelines, it's about being part of the conversation.
Nigeria's position today reminds us that policy must reflect African priorities, not just in economic terms.
It's about leading Africa's narrative, ensuring that our voices are heard.
Nigeria is not just a trade or security leader in West Africa, but also a diplomatic force shaping multilateral development agendas with China.
Beyond trade, infrastructure, and investment, the conversation also touched on how media can better reflect the depth and dignity of African agency in global partnerships. Diplomacy is no longer confined to formal delegations. The voices of journalists too are shaping perception, policy and progress, and Nigeria continues to lead that conversation. From Beijing in China, Patricia Esamiluba, NTA News.
This is the news at 10 a.m. on NTA News 24. Here is a recap of our top stories. President Tinubu arrives Rio de Janeiro, Brazil for 2025 BRICS Summit as members strengthen trade and technology exchange. Senate holds public hearing as Constitutional Review Committee seeks stakeholders' opinion on proposed amendments. FRSC sentenced 4 recalcitrant drivers to community service as Call Marshal warns traffic violators. And that's it on the news at 10 on NTA News 24. Thanks for watching. I am Vivian Izadifi. See you again at the top of the hour.